What do the very best college applicants have in common? And no, I don't want to talk about the obvious stuff, top 1% grades, national, international awards, stacked resumes. I want to talk about your branding, how to present yourself so that you can get into your dream school. I'm Kevin, Yale grad, amateur breakdancer, and professional college counselor who's helped students from every background imaginable get into every single top 20 school for the past 5 years in a row. Today, I'm about to explain why leaning into your race, culture, talking about religion, spirituality is one of the best moves that you can make when it comes to your college application, especially if you're an Asian or Asian American applicant. I just came back from the #1 college admissions conference in the country, and there was an entire workshop dedicated to should you talk about race in your college essays. The answer was a resounding yes. They just can't write that in big, bold letters on their website, especially after the political pushback on DEI. So instead they created prompts like, tell us about a person, event, or experience that shaped your values, or reflect on a community to which you belong. Share how your perspectives or lived experiences will enrich your community. Different wording, same idea. Identity, identity, identity. When it comes to these types of questions, some write about being an artist or musician. Others write about their involvement in Boy Scouts or being a camp counselor or a work experience. Don't get me wrong, those topics are fine, but if you really want to stand out, talk about race, culture, or religion. You don't have to write about this in your Common App essay or in the supplemental prompts that I just mentioned either. This emphasis on culture, race, or religion can appear in your activities list. It can appear in a recommendation letter where you ask a teacher to just briefly mention a few anecdotes about you leading some cultural events. The top 0.1% of applicants even put a little academic spin on it. I once read an essay about a student who mentored kids in origami while also debating the ethics of nuclear warfare with them. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kev, I'm Asian, I'm white, I'm agnostic. I don't know what else to say, but hear me out. There are so many different good ways to kind of skin this cat. Here's a personal example, right? I grew up Chinese American in Miami, working in my parents' Chinese restaurant, and oftentimes I would have to field phone calls, take orders in Spanish. At first I was like pretty bad at it, so I started studying Spanish, taking it more seriously, and then I ended up even going to Spain, to Salamanca, to study Spanish. And I just fell in love with the language. I kept studying Spanish in high school and developed a love for Spanish literature, magical realism, which ended up being the essay topic I wrote about in my, hey, tell me about an intellectual topic that excites you for Yale. Now, another student I worked with didn't go for an academic intellectual angle. He went more for like a service angle. He was the only Hispanic kid on his lacrosse team, and he created this initiative to help more Latino students get involved in lacrosse and other predominantly white sports. These aren't stories that are like, I'm Asian, let me in, or I'm Latino, let me in. They're about cultural awareness, leadership, proactivity. That's how you stand out. By the way, that Latino student I mentioned, he attends Columbia. Seriously, guys, like articulating how you use your cultural heritage to fuel and spur your personal growth, to promote belonging. That's the secret sauce. By the way, identity doesn't only fit in this like lived experience essay. You can weave it into the why our school essays too. I heard these words direct from an admission officer's mouth last week. Like, we aren't just building academic communities. If they only cared about test scores, then college admissions would look like China or India. You would just take one test. Harvard or Yale, they would just take every valedictorian in the country, but they don't do that. Again, I spoke face to face with over a dozen admission officers, and they kept emphasizing that inside the admissions committee, they will intensely debate questions like, how will you fit on our campus? What roles will you play? What traditions will you carry forward? Like, guys, when I got into Yale, my admissions officer literally wrote me and he said, hey Kev, we think you'd be a perfect fit at the Jackson Institute, given your Boy Scout background and your excellence in Spanish and Mandarin. That's awesome. You should totally check out the Global Affairs major and the Yale International Relations Association. True story, my grades weren't even in the top 20% of my high school. I can tell you for a fact that they didn't admit me because I was the biggest nerd on campus, but because I would be a great community fit. So if you're applying to a top school like Yale, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, NYU even, don't just say, I'm Asian. Talk about something like this instead. Mention how you've invited dozens of neighbors to celebrate cultural festivals or events like Diwali or Holi with you, and you can't wait to do the same on campus, except like 10 times better. Don't say, I love boba. Instead, try this. I've got a secret boba recipe handed down to me by my great grandpa, or I've perfected this recipe over the past 4 years, and I can't wait to share it with new friends at the Asian American Cultural Center during these events while we have an honest discussion about the pros and cons of tiger parenting. Even better than writing about culture or race might be the topic of religion, especially if you have these more unique wombo combos, right? My wife, for example, is Brazilian, but also explored many different religions in her life: Shintoism, Catholicism, different sects of Christianity. If you're Asian and Catholic, even that is kind of an interesting, refreshing combo. In fact, one of my Asian American students last year, she had 2 essays on cancer research, but she also wrote about her faith, specifically how she turned a really cliche topic like music into a way to spread the gospel and bond with people from totally different backgrounds, like the elderly, the young, even the blind. That balance of intellectual identity with spiritual identity, trust me when I say it helped a lot with getting that Johns Hopkins acceptance letter. This is an even crazier story, but one of my friends at Yale was totally agnostic. But growing up in Chicago, she pushed herself and challenged herself to visit these like 4 or 5 different houses of worship: a mosque, a synagogue, Catholic church, Protestant church, a Hindu temple. In her application essay, she wrote about listening, sharing meals, asking really thoughtful questions. I mean, at the end of the day, her essay wasn't all about belief or religion. It was really more about dialogue, openness, service, and building bridges. College application advice that applies to pretty much anyone in any scenario, but try not to focus so much on really cliche values like curiosity, growth, excellence. Please, please, please try to avoid this college essay trap. If you want to win this admissions game, here's how you gotta play. Use fresh values. I'm talking about ones like adventure, stability, trust, loyalty, freedom, stewardship. Then combine and fuse it with race, culture, and identity. Check this out. The answer to these questions will get you into your dream school, right? Like, how has being Asian American actually made me a more honest friend? Or how has my Indian identity made me more adventurous? How did growing up speaking multiple languages grant me more freedom and autonomy? How did leading temple services or church choir teach me about loyalty and trust? How did being biracial make me a better steward of local and cultural traditions? Final tip, but when it comes to writing about race, culture, which again, you totally should, one topic to be a little bit careful about to avoid is food. So everyone's always like, oh wow, I'll bring my fried rice to campus, or my mom has this amazing Taiwanese fried chicken recipe or biryani recipe, which I'll share with my roommates. And even just mentioning like really common cultural festivals like Lunar New Year, Indian dance can be pretty common these days. That being said, there is an exception to every rule. The cliche can still work if executed properly. Way back when, years ago, I wrote my Common App about working in my parents' Chinese restaurant, but I didn't just talk about frying rice. Going back to that principle of using fresh values, the ones that I chose were vulnerability and sacrifice. I mean, the story was essentially about how after toiling in my parents' Chinese restaurant for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, I finally understood the literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into my own education. Similarly, my co-founder Jeff, he challenged traditional cultural norms by talking about how much respect he had for his stay-at-home dad. His essay, by the way, started off with this crazy hook. Not all sons of doctors raise baby ducks and chickens in their kitchen, but I do. My dad taught me. By the way, guys, his Common App was featured in the New York Times, so to see the full analysis, just check out this video here. In conclusion, the best college applications, the best college essays, they aren't about your grades or extracurriculars or awards. They're about what makes you human, how you're gonna enrich the social, cultural fabric of your future community. If you're having a little bit of trouble framing your story, well, that's what we do best here at Elevated. Check out our website, elevated.school/editmyessay, and use this code YouTube15 to get 15% off your first purchase. Final request, but if you guys could just please like and leave a friendly comment on the video, it really helps with sharing and promoting more of our free resources with sensational students just like you. Let me know in the comment section too. Are you planning to write about race, culture, religion in your essays? What are your thoughts on this subject? Thanks for watching. Until next time, my dear virtual little sibling. Peace.